Welcome to the Z-Hut. Today we're going to be talking about extension tubes. Now extension tubes are a way to do macro photography cheaper than buying some of the very expensive macro lenses. Now what extension tube does is it allows the camera to focus closer than it normally would. Now what I have here is a couple of lenses. These are some old Olympus lenses. This is a 28mm and this is a 50. Now I use the 50 quite often with these extension tubes. Now they're Olympus and they're full manual. There's no electronics in them. So to make it work with the Canon, I just simply got this adapter. That goes on, turn it, snaps into place. You put it on the extension tubes. Mount it on the camera. And before, this lens, if I remember right, it was about 1.5 to 2 feet was the closest focus distance. Now, with all the extension tubes on there, I could focus in probably within an inch of the item. Maybe even a little closer. Now the nice thing about these extension tubes, I'll take them back off. Is it screws apart and it's in 3 sections. Now this piece is the one that goes to the camera. This piece is the one that goes to your lens. You know, I've never tried just to see. That does give a little bit of space. I've never tried that. I should and see. But what you do is you take a combination of these, because the longer the extension tube, the closer you can focus. Well, sometimes you don't want to focus that close. And what you can do is take a combination, any combination, just 1, 2 of them together, or all 3 of them together, and it'll give you a different distance for your minimum focus point. Let's screw that one back in there. And thing to remember, don't torque these down as tight as you can or you're going to have a problem getting them apart. There is a tiny bit of lubrication on them. They didn't put a lot, which is a good thing because you don't want any grease or anything getting on your lens. That could turn into a nightmare. Now when you're using the extension tubes, oops, I didn't stick that in there right. There it is. Instead of using your focus, you just set it all the way in or all the way out, and what you do is you move the camera in and out. And that is how you focus. And also remember, your depth of field is going to be extremely shallow. That's why you might want to use a program for doing focus stacking. Otherwise, you're not going to get, if you try doing this on a grasshopper, you are not going to get the entire insect in full sharpness. It's not going to happen. Now, this is a prime lens, that's why you move the camera in and out to focus it. Now, you can take, this is also an OM lens, but this, let me see if I remember, it was like a, okay, it's 80 to 200. I haven't used this in a while. It's something I picked up dirt cheap and keep it around. I think the last time I actually used it was for doing macro. And you can put the tubes on there. And where's the dot? There it is. And when you got this big, long, honking lens on there, hold it here. Don't just try to hold the camera. You're going to bend something, break something. But the nice thing about using a zoom lens is now you can get to the distance away you want to be. And you still got to be fairly close. So then, if I remember right, about 3-4 feet at max. And down as close, this is about like half a foot or so. But this has a push and pull zoom. Now you can get in there, and what you do is you use the zoom for your focus. Don't worry about adjusting the focus. You can leave it all the way in, all the way out, whatever you choose. But use the zoom for the focus. And I would say if possible use a tripod, but when you're taking pictures of insects, they're not going to stay put. And that's why generally when I'm doing macro for insects, I use the zoom lens. Because I can get, and they're moving around, so I can use this as a focus, use the zoom as the focus, instead of moving the camera in and out, and then just take tons of pictures, because eventually you'll get one that's nice and sharp and in focus. Now, they do also make extension tubes that will work with your autofocus lenses. And I have been thinking about getting a set of those. They're around $40 to $50 for a reasonably okay set. These ones here I ordered, I think they were $7, $8. Extremely cheap way to get into macro. But the nice thing with the autofocus extension tube set is there's a couple programs out there. One of them that I have looked at and downloaded the trial and played with it a little is Helicon Focus. And they actually have a program for your computer. You can use your laptop, or they have an Android app. And what you do is you put your extension tubes, or if you've got a macro lens, either way, and it'll automatically adjust and take the pictures. But what you got to first, you set the furthest point of focus you want, and the nearest point, or it's the nearest point and furthest point. Sorry, I haven't used the program. I downloaded it and checked it out, and I haven't really done any macro shooting with it, so I'm not going to say I'm an expert at it or know everything about it. But it's worth checking out. There is a free trial, and then it was affordable. If I remember right, it's a yearly subscription to use it. And I think there is a purchase price, too, for lifetime. And it uses the autofocus then, but you have to have the extension tubes that have the electrical connectors through. And it controls the focus of the lens, and you can set you want to take 10 shots, 20 shots, whatever. And then you run in their other program that does focus stacking. And it takes all the sharp points of the picture, merges them together, and you get some awesome shots. Now, there is another way to get a little closer, and the extension tubes are better in my opinion, but if you got a teleconverter, and I do have one, you can put your lens on there, and this is just my kit lens that came with this camera. This is the 18 to 55, and you put the teleconverter on there, and what that does is it multiplies the millimeters, your focal length. And it would take this 55, and this is a 1.4, so you take like 55 if you were maxed out, or 18 at the shortest distance. Multiply it by 1.4, and that's what your millimeters would be. It works a little bit, I mean, if you just need to get in a little tighter, but I did do a little playing around last year when I got this, and I put it on with the extension tubes. It did work, because you're adding more glass, your lens is in there, the picture's not as sharp, which is the reason why I go for the extension tubes. There is nothing in there, air. So the sharpness of your lens is not going to change at all. The better quality lens you got, even with cheap extension tubes, ain't going to change nothing except how close you can focus in. Well, with that, I can't think of anything else to really add to this tutorial here. All I can say, if you want to get into doing some macro photography, the old manual focus lenses, and this one and this one are the old Olympus lenses, and these two are actually pretty high quality. I got one hell of a deal on them. They're worth a lot more than I paid for them. Then I have this here. This is a 135 millimeter Machion, not sure how to pronounce it. It's an old Pentax lens. I picked this up at the Goodwill for $5. And then I ordered the adapter for it. And this sticks on there with extension tubes too, but it's just a prime. But this one actually has a macro feature. You spin it, and it's not full macro, but it does allow you to focus in closer. But I have tried it with the extension tubes, and it's not the sharpest lens in the world, but I have seen a lot worse. So, I'd like to thank you for joining us here at the Z Hut. I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate it very much. And we hope to see you here again at the Z Hut. Have a good day.